Sal, it would seem there are some MAGA, let's call them alleged superstars of the MAGA world, who have appeared in these the Epstein Files, in a way that is perhaps less than flattering. Welcome back to the show, Sal. It's great to see you. We got a lot to discuss today.
Oh, yeah. There's so
Your
much going
guy.
on, Jason. Jason, there's so much to get to. But, you know, from a continuation of last week to this week, and I'm sure there'll be another, dump, I'll say, on these files, including that gentleman right there and what his involvement is in with this. But it's been a crazy week of news. They just wrote an article featuring, my show as being one of the headline of it. So it's been a lot of stuff that I'll cover.
Who wrote that article about your show?
Dan Murphy
the
from
Sal Greco show.
The Yonkers Times. And,
Nice.
It's nice to be credited for things. Like yesterday, Emerald Robinson said something about Boris Epstein he was the one that put Todd Blanche in the DOJ. Yeah, I said this like in November of 2024. I actually explained how this all works and worked, right? And of course, everybody's jumping on what she said when I said this.
But hang on, take it back, because people might have seen you say that here. They might have seen you say that on your show. But tell us what's going on. Todd Blanche has fired Ed Martin, right? And Boris Epstein, another guy, put him in there. And so what is the upshot of this? Why did he do that? What do we know about Boris Epstein? And what's going on now that Ed Martin is fired?
You see, Boris Epstein is another unscrupulous character in Trump world. He's a senior advisor. He's an attorney who has never tried a case. He's never been in court. He's been arrested a few times. One was very public, and I think he was intoxicated. He tried to harass a female. You can watch that video. It's all over the internet. But this guy was actually selling either access or trying to sell the appointments that Trump was making in his administration. So he got caught, and there's an ethics violation, and then nothing happens. Because this guy somehow, I'm telling you, you barely hear anything about this guy. This guy is the reason that at that time, Joe Tacopina was Trump's attorney in his case in New York. And say what you want about Joe, but he knows the system. He knows the judges. He gets people off. I mean, he got a guy off. I believe it was a rapper in Los Angeles.
Wasn't he Commissioner Kerrick's attorney when Kerrick got all jammed up?
Yes.
And it turned out that Tacopina was an informant for the feds? Donald Trump has some of the worst attorneys we've ever seen on the planet. I mean, right.
Yeah. But Joe Tacopina, as a criminal defense attorney, is probably one of the top 5 you're going to try to call if you're in serious trouble.
Yeah.
Just like Trump was in serious trouble, right? So he got him off of some of the charges, and then Boris Epstein somehow was the head of his legal team, which it's well documented. Yet the guy has no legal experience. You wonder why this guy is there. But again, Trump makes bizarre decisions. Michael Cohen, why is this guy around? He's not a real attorney. He's a schemer. But so he puts Boris in this position. And then it's Boris who brings in Todd Blanche and Emil Bove. Remember that guy?
Oh, right. Exactly.
And these are the people who don't defend him in the case. He gets found guilty. Somehow he thinks this is a victory, Trump. I mean, really, I don't know what goes on in this guy's head. They completely failed him, yet here they go, failing up, right? This is the big thing, even in the New York City Police Department. You fail upwards, right? So then it was Boris that made them go to the Justice Department. And unfortunately, for all of us, when we had the infamous case of Eric Adams, it was this guy who was this guy was in the DOJ. He had so many complaints on him. He got promoted to second in charge of the deputy of Todd Blanche. And he was the one that ultimately dismissed the case and had everybody resign in that office. It was a total disgrace. And
now an appellate court judge in
now he's
Philly.
Which he's not even from this state. So he, it's the whole thing reeked, but it comes from Boris Epstein, who then, if you remember, Steve Bannon. Remember, Boris Epstein, although he went to Georgetown with Emil Bove and Donald Trump's son, Eric Trump. I think him and Eric were around the same time or, a year apart because then one graduated. But he brought in these people, and then Steve Bannon was the one that kept putting Boris on the War Room show he has. And that's how Boris came to prominence in Magaland. Nobody knew who the hell this guy was. He's from Borough Park. He would run around and do rallies. But we all know the guy's a real attorney, so why are we listening to this guy? So he came to prominence through Steve Bannon, and it's the Artie Idala connection, which Artie Idala is Eric Adams' close friend. And then he becomes the lawyer for not only Ingrid Lewis Martin, which is another friend of Artie's, but he's also the attorney that brokered this deal for Steve Bannon to get out of the build the wall scam charge he had in New York State, which was the fallout from the federal case that he was pardoned in when everybody else went to jail, right? So that's the entire connection in a nutshell is Boris Epstein's the guy who's connected to everybody. Bannon, Bove, Blanche, Artie Idala, all these people in this world, and then Eric Adams. And this is how Eric Adams came into play. Steve Witkoff, another guy that nobody knew until last week when he showed up with Trump. He brought Eric Adams to West Palm Beach. This whole thing is all revolving around Boris Epstein. And he's also, remember, he was charging people to try to get appointed, it's technically a crime. It's unethical for a lawyer to do that. Sure. What would stop him from doing this with pardons?
Right. Well,
so
we've heard rumors of that.
Get rid of Eagle Ed Martin, right? Put him in another position and ice him out. And then CNN. It's funny, Jason, CNN and all these left-wing leaning news outlets have never written anything too harsh on Boris Epstein. Why? Boris Epstein is this unscrupulous character. He's the legal advisor. Guy never won a case. Who is this guy? Where did he come from? This reeks. And Todd Blanche, who's not qualified to even be the number 2 in the Justice Department, by all accounts, is making all the decisions. Because you cleared Pam Bondi. I don't know what she knows or what she's doing. Remember the big Epstein file press conference a week ago? Todd Blanche was up there. So this is the repercussions of Boris Epstein, and people should really start digging on this guy. But I did say this in November of 2024, yet it acted yesterday like Emerald Robinson was the one that came out with this when I told you in November. And I'm not one to take credit, but I did say it. I did say it, and people should pay attention.
One other important thing, Todd Blanche is also the guy who went and met with Ghislaine Maxwell in jail. Correct. And then shortly after that, what happened? They put her on some tennis court duty or something where she's walking dogs with Elizabeth Holmes, getting a puppy.
Unprecedented, right? Because that's never happened before either. And again,
is that right?
Yeah, I don't think it's ever happened before where they took somebody out and unless they're an informant, there's nothing that she gave that changed anything. Oh, by the way, you know who was her attorney?
I don't know.
You know who her attorney was to try to get out to Artie Idala? You see the connection?
That's the thing.
It's not me. I'm just pointing you in the right direction.
No, you're right. I mean, listen, there's this whole lawfare thing going on where, dopes like you and me get into court, and no matter what the facts are, no matter what the evidence is, we lose. Criminals who have these attorneys, allegedly, nothing happens to them. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's why Trump needed to hire these guys, because it's like, look, you're locked in the jaws of this thing that unless you have... I mean, Sal, I've been experiencing this firsthand. In my case, I'm up against Ballard Spahr, which is a 140-year-old white shoe law firm representing a guy who lives in a rental condo in Newark, which is not the kind of client they normally take. obviously that person has some importance to somebody. My allegation is that the law firm is hired by the Lawfare Institute to protect this guy because he's a lawfare hitman who's defamed me in the public. And this goes on. And then people say, I'm not even going to repeat what they say, but it's like, oh, you're taking legal action. Then that must mean something about you, Jason. But I mean, what are you supposed to do? You know, you go out in the street and punch somebody, you're a thug. You take him into court, and I get accused of all kinds of reprehensible things. But it seems like there is a lawfare system that you need a lawfare lawyer to navigate, and it goes to judges. Maybe that's why Bove has now been installed.
I'd say this: out of all the attorneys I've seen around him, and not because I know him, but his history, everything, David Schoen is probably, again, if you top 5 criminal defense attorney, David Schoen is one of them. And he was one of the attorneys in the impeachment trial. Probably he was the best one. And I don't know why Trump doesn't have him as his lead defense. If any legal issue, David Schoen should be it. See, there he was. Joe Tackett,
here's the thing.
They did not get along.
When you say best criminal defense attorney, do you mean smartest, most ethical, most successful in court? Because I'm talking about a system that is not a meritocracy where the best do not win. It's the most connected, the most corrupt. So if someone honest gets in there and tries to win and loses, maybe that's not the right lawyer that you need to hire.
Here's the thing, and by the way, Joe, I don't know him personally. I just, we've had, a conversation once or twice, and then, he's a big Italian American. He lives in Italy half the time. So Joe does know Artie Idala. I'm not going to lie about that, which would be another connection.
Tacopina.
But Joe Tacopina, as a defense attorney, he gets the job done. His winning percentage is extremely high, but so is David Schoen, he knows the system, but he doesn't play with it. You understand? He's going to do his job and make his arguments, and they're brilliant. And David Schoen writes brilliant articles, he defends the Constitution. So when he defends the president, he's defending a legal stance that he will argue. He's not one of those kind of guys that plays around with attorneys or judges and he doesn't play the game. But he wins. He's been an excellent criminal defense attorney. That's someone, if I'm not the president, but I would want him on standby on any legal issue.
You're not the president? Sal, this is breaking news.
Yeah, I'm not the president. But if I was, if I was him, that's what I would have. And I would advise him to have David Schoen on standby, who, when he entered Roger Stone's case, by the way, he was about to appeal it, and he had all the right arguments, but the problem was then they wanted to throw Roger in jail regardless of the appeal, and then that's when the commutation came. But David Schoen had an excellent appeal ready. He came on the team a little too late, because if he was one of the original defense attorneys, it definitely would have been a lot different in the courtroom. That's all I could say with David Schoen. Excellent attorney.
Well, the thing that I would like to speak to Joe Tacopina about is this. This is one of my all-time, I don't know if favorite is the right word, but one of the craziest heists in the history of New York City is this Dali drawing, this sketch stolen from Rikers Island. Tacopina represented the heister.
There it is. I remember this.
Yeah. So this is a crazy case, but that's Joe Tacopina. And also, this is a crucifixion of Christ that is also very Baphomet. It's one of these Dali things that, depending on how you look at it, it's a top-down view of the crucifixion, but at a distance it looks like a cow skull. So it's a bizarre. A lot of people are put off by some of Dali's bizarre imagery. But anyway, we're getting far afield here. We want to talk more, and we're going to get in depth on this for people who have not yet subscribed, Sal, to your new Substack page. We're going to have a sponsor exclusive segment right after this. People are going to be able to get to that by subscribing to thesalgreco.substack.com. com. That's your
Yeah.
new Substack page where you've been posting articles and exclusive videos. People can sign up and subscribe on there. Of course, they're also going to get the sponsor exclusive segment on crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com and subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Also, people who follow me on X at JG_CSTT will get that. What are we going to be talking about with regard to Steve Bannon, the Epstein Files, and all of this really shocking stuff?
Yeah, and also I want to thank for those who did sign up last week to my Substack. You will help fund the entire operation because there's a lot of things. It does take a lot to do what I do. Obviously, those quick hits I'm coming out with is affecting a lot of things in the police department. There's exposés as well. There's things but all of this, I could only do it personally so far. And as you know, Jason, to actually get a sponsor, an advertiser, you have to be. It's a narrow
but
lane.
You don't even want that, Sal, because
they
if
pick and
let's
choose
say
their winners.
Exactly. Let's say you got a sponsor and they're paying you, name the number, per month, and suddenly they say, "Ooh, Sal, you know what? We don't want to have negative stories about this sergeant in the NYPD, so if you want that $10,000 a month check, you better stop reporting on that." Or let's say Rumble gives you a big show and they say, "Hey, Dan Bongino is one of our investors. We don't want you speaking negatively about him, even though he's a lunkhead and a moron," that sort of thing. So it's much better to have individual viewer sponsors on Substack, on salgreco.com, these different ways that, viewer sponsors can support the work. And I hope that people will do that. They can go to salgreco.com, tap on the support tab, and send you some money, keep this reporting going. But forgive me, you were in the middle of telling us about Steve Bannon and professional grifting operations.
Yeah, that is a professional grifting operation. And by the way, I actually wrote about this on my Substack, and then we had another article written in the Popular Sentinel by Jason Grossman, who absolutely, posted a ton of. There's tons of messages. Just to say one of these messages. Steve Bannon discusses Epstein, talks about him coming over and doing something to Bannon's face. Now, I just want to, I didn't want to save that for the Substack, but in the stuff that I'm reading, and there's also a section where they were talking about Benjamin Netanyahu, and apparently Bannon wanted to have Epstein as an investor. And I remember he gotten in trouble with the build a wall scam. He's looking to invest in another wall scam, and he takes Epstein up on this. So he was trying to revitalize his image at a time where he's a convicted pedophile running around. And he called himself a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3.
Yeah.
He called himself, I'm only tier 1. And Bannon had no issue with that. So Bannon is a morally and ethically challenged human being. On top of, we have still yet to know what exactly were they doing together. Where did they go together? You're starting to see it now. I know he went to France. I know he sat down with him, but there's more than 15 hours worth of footage. And right here, text show Bannon bragged to Epstein about secretly building private wall near El Paso. So he was planning another scheme. This is another grift. It wasn't bad enough he got caught in the first one. He was going to do a second one. You understand?
Ridiculous.
This guy wants to run for president. Yesterday he said
That's
something
crazy.
We should the feds should surround the ICE facility or some whatever crazy thing Bannon said. And there's people actually like a bunch of SEALs clapping for this guy. Now, for everyone out there, especially those that watched Dan Bongino for years, that said, we need transparency with the Epstein files. Well, this guy Bannon is all over them. And it doesn't matter who started in them. It's who ended with him. Because remember, he perished right after he was indicted and charged.
I don't think he's dead.
This guy was there till the very end. I think the day prior before he was charged and he was captured. So that is very telling. This guy was there in the final months, the final years, very chummy with him, very close. They're planning something, and nobody wants to discuss this guy, and he has nothing to say. And I hear his little crony crowd, the war room posse out there. Bannon, you want transparency? Bannon also said this. The minute his name came up, silence. Oh, I did an interview with him. No. You did a lot more than an interview. Just read those files. And he's silent on it. And yet, I don't know. Trump posted it. He retweeted something about him, saying him and Navarro are great people. Really? Is that why he's talking about doing things to his face with Epstein? I mean, what a disgusting human being, a slob this guy is. It's really... and I really don't usually attack things or look at things, and especially in a conspiratorial way. But looking at it with the evidence and stuff that I'm reading, and the more this guy is unethical. I don't know if there's any criminal acts he committed with Epstein or anything, but the more you're reading about it, the more you're seeing there's a problem. And I can't believe that people are still supporting Steve Bannon. It's the same thing like the cops that are supporting someone who was drunk and hit someone on the highway, and we don't even discuss the poor soul that perished. It's all about back the blue, bro. Yeah, bro. All that nonsense.
That's the thing. It can't be, whatever they do, we're behind them. I mean, when somebody does something wrong, they do something wrong. What about hero of Pizzagate, Jack Posobiec, who's always hanging out with Bannon? What does he say about Bannon being, buddy with Epstein? It seems irreconcilable.
Yeah. It looks, I don't know if these guys are actually behind not even addressing this, because I haven't followed Jack in a long time. I don't know what he's said, but I remember him wanting clarity on the Epstein file. Well,
right.
Your problem is Steve Bannon's all over it. Were we just going to ignore that he's in there? And the thing people need to realize is you keep thinking that this now deceased unscrupulous billionaire was a big player in the Democrat Party. He's a Democrat. He funds Democrat stuff. He's big behind the Clintons. So then why is a right-wing conservative alleged MAGA guy who worked for the Trump administration but was talking to this guy while he was doing whatever he was doing with him, what is he doing with him? Because it's two different philosophies clashing into one, right? So then my WWE, theory on life is true, because it's just you are part of the act yourself. You're clapping like seals, and they're all laughing at you because it's a big show. You think one guy is against the other guy and all this nonsense, but like wrestling, they'll turn on you, and then the next show turn on the other guy again and go back to being a good guy. That's what you're seeing. But there's money being made. There's victims, and nobody cares because they just run to back the person or whatever, the character, no matter what. And it's a big Joe Cop thing with the NYPD and all the coppers. We're going to back someone even if they've committed crimes. It's okay. No, we need to hold people accountable, Jason. That's my whole theory on life is if you don't hold people accountable, there's nothing. You have nothing to look forward to because it means integrity. That there's a couple of tiers, and if you don't fall in the tier 1 class, you're going to get stomped on. Right. 2-tier system.
Well, we're almost out of time here on this segment, Sal, but people are going to be able to join us right after this on thesalgreco.substack.com and all of the Crowdsource the Truth sponsorship channels, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, subscribestar.com, patreon.com. We got more to talk about. There's this whole Bannon, FJB, cryptocurrency coin. Federal prosecutors were looking into this in 2023. I haven't heard too much about this. Are they still looking into it? They're looking for Savannah Guthrie's grandmother or whatever it is, but they don't care about all of this, crimes.
So why, right, Jason? Did you see the name involved in that? Boris Epstein.
In this coin?
Say no more. Yeah, just say Boris Epstein. Need say no more. No more. You don't have to say anything else.
Wow.
Why bother looking?
Yeah, we're going to get into all of that right